All right, why don't we get started? I think it's a good idea. It's a little after 10. And I want to welcome everybody first of all. And what I'd like to do is probably go around the room if we could, just so that we have everybody that knows who the legislators are, what representatives are here from either Congress and or from the local level, from the Senate, and also which ones are here from Commissioner Miller's office. In addition, I got to ask you, first of all, did everybody find their way okay? Okay, welcome to Macomb County. This is our home here in Macomb. And on top of it, if you haven't been here or haven't seen the lake, most of you probably should have because that's what your jobs are, then we welcome you to come out after this and we'll take you to the lake. What we're doing here today is we have an agenda. I want to follow the agenda. I think it's important when anybody from any office, whether it be elected or otherwise, puts together something that they have an agenda so that everybody knows what the purpose of the program is, what the intent is that we're trying to accomplish, and when we leave here, what the action plan is to go ahead and implement. My name is Representative Pete Lucido, and I was elected last term. So I'm starting my second term in office. I represent Shelby, Washington, Romeo, Bruce. Great communities, and we have that beach over there. Does anybody know what beach is over there in Shelby Township? It's, you know what it is? You know what it is?
The beach?
Bay Point Beach.
No, it's not Bay Point, but Bay Point is over there, but it's
Metro Beach.
Metro, part of Metro Beach. Stony Creek. Stony Creek.
Metro Park.
Metro Parks. And that water over there is what I'm concerned with, and I know that we all have, and I will be seeing from Representative Marino when he gets here, and Representative Martel when he gets here, what our concerns are and what we need to do as a team to go ahead and help us out. Why don't we start here, go right around the room, and then by then I hope to see the two other representatives made it because they're both in transit.
Karen Sternell, Macomb County Public Works.
State Representative Jeff York.
I'm State Representative Pam Hornberger, and I also border the Lake Pete.
I know you're representing.
I'm representing State Senator Jack Brandenburg.
I'm Don Brown, representing Councilman Paul Mitchell. I'm also a county commissioner of Stony Creek Metro Park Authority, so that's my district.
Good morning, my name is Tammy Newcomb. I'm with the Department of Natural Resources, and my job is all things invasive carp.
And I'm Anna Moody, Legislative Liaison for the Department of Natural Resources.
Jim Francis, Michigan DEQ Fisheries Division. I oversee the Lake Erie program.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gary Whalen from Michigan Department of Natural Resources Fisheries Division, where I'm a program manager. I manage our research section and fish health.
Good morning. I love beaches. I'm Shannon Briggs. I work with Michigan DEQ. I'm a water toxicologist, and I coordinate all of the beach activities with the local health departments in Michigan. And I know Stony Creek. There's 2 beaches on there. Macomb County's been working on them, so I'm looking for some more work.
And I'm Kevin Goodwin. I'm with the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. I'm an aquatic biologist, and I'm charged with water quality standards coordination and some of our monitoring programs in this area.
Good morning, my name is Phil Argeroff. I work with the Michigan DEQ Water Resources Division.
Good morning, I'm Teresa Seidel. I'm the Water Resources Division Director.
Dan Beauchamp, DEQ Water Resources Division.
Andy Hartz, DEQ Water Resources Division, District Supervisor here in the Warrant Office, overseeing construction activity in Lake St. Clair and other regulated areas in the county.
My name is Laura Verona. I am with the DEQ and Southeast Michigan District Office with Andy and Dan. I'm District Supervisor, and my unit is the Public Wastewater Unit.
Hi, I'm Dave Wright. I'm the Chief of Operations for the Army Corps of Engineers Detroit District.
I'm Pat O'Connor with the regulatory section of the Corps of Engineers in Detroit.
I'm Scott Thiem, also with the Corps in Detroit, the Deputy District Engineer for Country.
State Rep Pat Green, District 28, Warren and Centerline.
Kozeski from State Rep John Jerkins' office.
Did you already introduce yourself?
I've met some of the people in the room here from previous meetings we've had. My name is Mike Gutau. I'm the founder and organizer of State Lake St. Clair. If you guys have seen us on Facebook or not, or videos or anything else like that, what we are, if you don't know what we're an organization, nonprofit organization put together to try to help stop, prevent the pollution that is preventable. and we are here as also an awareness vehicle vessel to help educate and think of different ways we can come up with to help stop the pollution and make people aware of the pollution that's going on. So that's what Saved by St. Clair is in a nutshell. We do have a follower of close to 25,000 people on our Facebook page, and they say for every person on Facebook equals about 4 people in reality, because not everybody's on Facebook. So if you want to put that in terms of numbers, we have roughly about 100,000 people in support of our cause right now, and it's growing daily. And I hope by the end we can all come together and work together to all stand behind this sign, which is, I think, one of the main reasons why we're here is to help Save Lake St. Clair and put policies and regulations together to help stop the pollution that's preventable.
Thanks, Mike. We just, did we get to the send or not yet?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Pete. Sorry I'm late. I have a newborn at home, so I'm on his schedule.
That's more important than Pete Lucido, right?
But Pete, thank you for putting this together. I greatly appreciate it. I represent the city of St. Clair Shores and the state legislature. We have a 5-mile shoreline right on Lake St. Clair. The work that Mike Gateau has done with his organization to bring attention to this issue and work to try to change the current policy we have in the state of Michigan has been incredible. I've sat for many years on the St. Clair Shores Waterfront Environmental Committee, so this is an issue that I've paid a considerable amount of attention to for many years. But I'm glad to see everybody come together. I think the first thing we have to do is realize we have a problem. And we're getting to that point. Now we have to find the solution. And I think that's the hard part. It's going to take a considerable amount of dollars, a considerable amount of individuals working together, not only in Macomb County, but across the state. And I look forward to working with anybody that's willing to sit down and talk about this issue. It's extremely important. As I now have a new son, I want him to be able to enjoy Lake St. Clair in the same ways that I was able to when I was young. So I look forward to working with everybody. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You guys introduce yourselves. Okay. If we go to the agenda, if we can, and just by a show of hands real quickly, how many are from the DEQ? Just put your hands up. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the DEQ here. The DNR, 3, 4. 4 from the DNR. Army Corps, 3. Good representation. The Health Department probably would be another stakeholder here because I guess they're the monitoring of the water as far as levels go. And I think what we need to do is just talk first of all DEQ, and somebody can be the spokesman under A. What is it that you do regarding the permitting process?
Sure, well I can start on that. Our NPDS permitting process, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, every 5 years goes through and issues a new permit for a facility. So, for example, our wastewater treatment plants are issued new permits, our industrial facilities that discharge are issued permits, stormwater systems are issued permits, and our RTBs, our retention treatment basins, that's what we're going to talk a little bit about here today, are also issued permits. So we're currently working on some of these permits, and that's our permitting.
And you said every 5 years?
Every 5 years, yeah. We have a rotating watershed schedule through the state, and based on this, we issue permits within that watershed.
How many permits do you issue generally on a 5-year renewal? So let's say it's the 5-year anniversary, or is this on a rolling? If I had it in, let's say, 2012, then in 2017 I would have to go get my permit.
That's correct, yeah.
And these are different, meaning not everybody are permitting all at the same time. There's a staggering of permits going on.
Yeah, based on watersheds, we issue different permits.
How many permits are currently out there right now, so we get an idea how many you are actually doing permitting for?
Sure, for non-stormwater facilities, we have about 1,900 permits.
And how many for stormwater?
Stormwater, there's probably about 2,500, 3,000.
So roughly about 4,500?
I would say that's correct.
Okay. Any other permits that you issue other than those?
So, yes.
In Southeast Michigan, my unit handles the Part 41, which is the wastewater, sewer, sanitary sewer construction permits.
Could you keep your voice up as loud as you possibly can? You got a soft voice. You got to be a Lucido.
So we issue collection system, sanitary sewer permits. That's, Part 41 is that program.
Collection system?
This is sanitary sewer, public sanitary sewers.
You issue the permits for 12 towns that discharge billions of gallons of sewage down the river.
So that's different. We issue the collection system in the local municipality. The discharge permit that you were talking about is for the retention treatment basin.
Right,
And
that's
that's
the
what
one.
Phil was discussing.
And that's the one we're currently working on right now, that permit.
What do you mean by that, currently?
So it's a draft permit right now, the GWK permit, and we have a draft out for that, and we can talk a little bit about the.
Right, I know that you guys have some new initiatives. I guess you just rolled them out last week. Just last week, I heard a news announcement that there was new, I don't know if it was monitoring or something going on from the DEQ. I'll get to that.
Okay,
I got it.
no, that's great.
All right.
So those are the permits that we issue for facilities, and then Andy's crew handles all of our wetlands issues. So that's another permitting process.
All right. Do you have any suggestions on wetlands on our lake yet, or is there any wetland permits that are out there, other than?
We don't, my unit administers Part 325, which is the Submerged Lands Act, which regulates any kind of construction activity below the high water mark of Lake St. Clair. Docks, seawalls, dredging, bridges, culverts, things like that. There aren't a lot of coastal wetlands left on the American side of Lake St. Clair, so we're very protective of those. So they certainly play a role, though, in the health of the lake.
All right. So for background purposes, we've heard what the DEQ is doing, right? And as far as monitoring water quality, who handles that?
Go ahead. I was going to say, the surface water assessment section handles water quality monitoring around the whole state. It's actually tied in with that 5-year rotating schedule that Phil talked about. So we monitor watersheds on that same kind of 5-year schedule, but 2 years in advance of when these permits are developed. The thinking behind that being that the biologists and engineers are monitoring water quality in those watersheds kind of 2 years in advance of these permits coming up for rescheduling, so that if we know problems that can be addressed through the permitting process, we can link those programs better.
How many people oversee water quality for Lake St. Clair from your department?
We're not divided like that. So our program, we do everything on a watershed basis. So we don't have somebody assigned to work on Lake St. Clair. We have staff in the district offices who will respond to kind of emergency type events, but the health department is also a partner in monitoring for things like E. coli. So we're partnerships in that way. We also partner with a lot of local.
But the rules and regulations are set by the DEQ?
No, they're set by the legislature.
I'm sorry. The legislature sets the rules and regulations. The DEQ follows those rules and regulations as far as for, let's say, sanctions or.
Right, we enforce the regulations that you set.
Okay. So if we want to set regulations lower or higher, you would enforce those regulations?
That's our duty under the Constitution, yes.
Anything else you want to talk about with DEQ? I know you had your hand up.
So what we do for all the beaches in Michigan is that we have 1,200 beaches in Michigan. We monitor, of the 1,200, we have 600 on the Great Lakes and 600 on inland lakes. We monitor about 200 on the Great Lakes and another 200 on the inland lakes, including Stony Creek. And I believe there's 2 beaches. Isn't there East Bay Point?
Yes.
Or East?
Thanks to Commissioner Brown, and he made that very clear to me.
All right. So part of what happens is we use federal and state and local funds with the partners of all the health departments across Michigan, including Macomb County, to monitor their beaches in their county.
What does that mean, monitor? I know that we have lifeguards that save lives and assist people. What do you mean by monitor, so we get right to it?
Right, so here we go. We're going to use the Michigan Public Health Code. Michigan Public Health Code tells the health officer he alone or she has the only authority to test or monitor beaches.
And that would be the health department, correct?
The health officer of Macomb County Health Department.
Okay.
We go with what they want to do. It's their decision to test or monitor. So I would have no authority to do any of that.
Understood.
So that's why I provide the financial and technical assistance, meaning the federal and state dollars, to Macomb County. And when things bubble up into an issue, then I provide as much technical help and research and monitoring, testing water quality that we can provide. And so When we give them the funding, they send out samplers. They usually go out in the morning, they collect a water sample, they have to take it to a lab. The lab will analyze it for the E. coli. When the E. coli are low, it means it's good. The E. coli themselves are a fecal indicator bacteria. It's just an indicator. It's not harmful, but it's just a bacteria that we use. It's easy to measure, and it tells us if there's any potential fecal contamination in the water. When those numbers are higher, then it can be an indicator that there is some fecal contamination, either from a human or an animal, and that's the issue that we're dealing with, is when they go high. So the other thing that's very fun is that a few years ago, we received $500,000 for the real-time beach monitoring program, where the state purchased qPCR machines that is at Metro Park Beach. The HCMA park has that. Now, when you say qPCR, it means you're measuring DNA. So when we used to measure E. coli, you had to put it in an incubator and come back the next day to find out if it grew anything. So you had to wait a day. So I could tell you.
So I could be on the beach on Friday, Saturday, Sunday with my family, but you're not going to test until Monday because your lab is closed by Friday at 5.
Right, or even better.
Well, and then on Monday or Tuesday, they told me you shouldn't have been in the water. The E. coli was too high.
Exactly.
All right.
So that's the fun.
So that's a problem that now, at least we have real-time testing.
Right, so the qPCR machines are right there on the beach. We can get a result in 4 hours. Here's the added advantage. Once you get your rapid result, now we can actually tell the DNA, where did the
Whether it was
host come
human,
from.
which is through the lining of the intestines, or whether it was bird or mammal type E. coli.
Exactly.
Good. I'm glad I got my facts right because I don't want to misstate anything.
No, you're right on it.
Good. So let's talk about the DEQ. It sounds like you're running a lot of the stuff that we're going to have problems with, doesn't it? I mean, our problems that we're bringing to you as legislators, also county officials, as well as federal officials, is that that's a $1 billion mile, 2 miles, 10 miles, 12 miles of resources that our executive calls it the blue water economy, that you've all heard. In fact, billboards were out there, lights, actions, cameras. And for those businesses, when those beaches are closed, because of E. coli levels that are too toxic for human life, families who would be suffering from getting sick, they're asking questions like, how is this going to impact my business if we keep discharging heavy levels and we're uncertain whether we're going to be open today or not? So we'll get into that because we got 2 other departments. Why don't we follow right off the agenda, the DNR?
Sure, I'll start off for us. And there's 2 components that you should be aware of. One is that we've maintained and operated a research station on Lake St. Clair since the late 1960s. We have long-term databases on fish stocks, fish populations that go into our management efforts to ensure those stocks are sustainable. We have consistent information from and consistently measured information from those areas, essentially from the St. Clair River all the way through Lake Erie, done on an annual basis. We have long-term data systems and models that allow us to manage those stocks. So we have a lot of fisheries data that goes into decisions that are done by DEQ and others. And when there's issues, for example, with fish health, then we do specialized sampling like we did this spring when viral hemorrhagic septicemia appeared and reappeared in our
That would be
waters.
those redfish that were bleeding out of their heads, their eyes, their
Mostly
their
on the
gills.
sides, it's mostly under skin. You'll see it
Scales.
on, yeah, so it essentially viral hemorrhagic septicemia is a virus. It's an invasive virus. Showed up here in the early 2000s, our best estimate. Came from the maritime region of Canada and affects a broad range of species and kills a fair number of them. This year's kill was less than the 2006 kill, but was in the tens of thousands of fish from our best estimates. It ranged from Marysville down to Lake Erie.
So your bailiwick is fish?
Fish. And we do
anything else besides fish that's in the water?
Right. Well, we do collect information on zooplankton. We collect some information on benthic invertebrates, the insects that live on the bottom. We do some information on water quality to help us explain what we see in our fish collection efforts. Mostly dissolved, oxygen dissolved. And
So water quality that affects the fish, right?
That's right. When we're out there sampling, it's important to have water quality information when you're out there.
Right.
So that's what our units do on Lake St. Clair and in the corridor. And then Jim's units in particular handles most of the inland work. That's equally important because they're measuring the things on the inland. Jim, you might want to mention a few things there.
Then let's talk about the inland.
Yeah, let me springboard off of that, Gary, thanks. So we cover the inland areas as well. So it's about, we cover from Lapeer County down to the state line, so about a 13 county area that we touch. And Stony Creek is one of those water bodies that we manage.
Yeah, if you don't cover the beaches and you just cover the lake, because I know that the beaches may be independent under your auspice of what your authority is. But I want to make sure I'm clear. When somebody gives me a call or wants to make a, an inquiry, that I've got the right department.
Yeah, and so I think it's important to look at the watershed perspective as well, as touched on earlier. And the Clinton River watershed is a good example. We get involved with a lot of habitat projects, so the wetlands that Andy talked about earlier, wetland creation, that all helps filter water and affects water quality as well. So it's pretty broad scope that we cover.
Anybody at county level, like let's say, and I don't know, that I could walk into, you have offices locally here in Macomb County. I know in Warren you have something because I've dealt with you there. But anything over like by the Verculen building where I can walk in, that they have services there for any troubled people that live on the water?
Well, our research station is down at the mouth of the St. Clair River, excuse me, at the Clinton River. So that's where our research station, Jim's office is over in Waterford.
Macomb County has an office in Macomb, Macomb Environmental Health Department.
That's the one, right. That's the one. So if they go to the health department to make a complaint, they're not going to send the customer somewhere else, will they? Let's say that they have a problem. Let's say they find something in their water. I want to channel it to one. What I'm trying to do is trying to channel it to one department that will go ahead and seed into any department, whether it be the Fed or state.
That's what I was going to say. Macomb County Environmental Health Department. That's
Good,
where they should go.
perfect. That would be Bill Rydell's department. Perfect.
Where is Bill today?
I don't know. You can call him. Go ahead.
I'm just here as your legislative liaison, here to help
Thank
facilitate
you.
this meeting, so. And whenever you do have concerns that we get from your offices or from Lake St. Clair, we work very closely with DEQ, and there's oftentimes a lot of overlap in different programming, so.
So what happens is all of us legislators that came here today have people that call the office as to something that may be involved with the beach or of the lake or some of the aquatics that are there. We just want to make sure we're clear this summer where we want to send those messages to. And then get feedback from all you. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, so good morning, thank you. So my role is with the DNR as the Senior Water Policy Advisor. So if we get big issues that come in related to the Great Lakes, like St. Clair or any of the Great Lakes, that usually lands on my desk. And so my job is to help find out where to make the connections, whether it's with Dr. Shannon Briggs and that program, or whether it's with Chief Seidel in terms of water quality. As a matter of invasive carp, we're working very closely with the Fish and Wildlife Service doing eDNA. So Dr. Briggs talked about DNA in the water. We actually sample in the water for bighead or silver carp DNA. So the invasive fishes work is part of where we operate. So not so much related to water quality per se, but the invasive fish is part of it. Now the other thing I wanted to mention too, Jim mentioned habitat work, and I'm sure the Army Corps will talk about it a little bit, but some of the work to manage water quality in this highly dense populated area is to look at those wetlands and surrounding areas. And I believe we have a very exciting project going on at the mouth of the Clinton River with recreation of some wetland habitats in there. So my role is to help connect the federal and state folks when problems come to our desk.
Thank you. I'm glad I know that now, because if I have a policy issue, I can call the
You will call Anna, and she will make sure that
I'm
I'm
resources.
Yeah.
But I
Anna's
want to
in
deal with
charge.
one person that understands the issue we want to go ahead and combat, and then put it into policy with the legislation.
So you deal with Anna first, and then Anna will make sure that whoever needs to be there front and center will be there front and center.
Perfect. Army Corps of Engineers. Who wants to start?
I can start with my role.
There's only three of you. So
Well, we weren't sure what the topics were going to be here.
well, we want to know, first of all, your jurisdiction, because when you look at the lake, I've been hearing that somebody says, no, that's the Corps. No, that's the DEQ. No, that's the Corps. No, that's the DEQ. Do we paint a line somewhere in the lake to say which is which?
I think it's going to depend on what it is exactly they're asking.
I'm all ears then, what it is that you do.
So my department, I'm responsible for operation and maintenance of existing authorized federal projects that might be on Lake St. Clair or any of the connecting channels or Great Lakes. In the case of Lake St. Clair, we have one major commercial navigation channel that runs down the whole middle of that, connecting St. Clair River to the lower river. So my department is responsible for periodically surveying that channel for depths in that commercial navigation channel.
What about water quality? Anything the Corps does on water quality?
We do not, my department doesn't any kind of water quality monitoring. Probably the only thing close to it is once every 5 years, we sample the sediment within our navigation channel so that we can decide when and where, when we have to do dredging, where we have to dispose of that dredging.
Is there any department within the Corps that does water quality?
I don't believe so.
Well, we, regulatory, we enforce Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, which is the regulatory aspect, and we regulate the discharge of fill material and or dredge material into waters of the United States and into their adjacent wetlands.
What's that mean in English?
Well, it means if you
I don't know nothing about
if you want to
discharge.
build, I'll tell you, if you want to build something in, and you need to dump some dirt someplace, and if it happens to be a wet place, you need to get a permit from us.
An example, City of New Baltimore wanted to build extended marina.
Right.
They needed court compliance to get that done.
Right.
So if I'm discharging E. coli or raw sewage,
That's
nothing to do with
that's
Corps.
not our.
That's DEQ.
Construction.
Okay, if I know that there's dumping going on of chemical and or material that shouldn't be in the lake, that's DEQ still,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the Army Corps of Engineers is A-specific to enforcement of Section 304. 404,
404,
sorry.
and it's federal jurisdiction.
Got it.
We do similar.
That would be Paul Mitchell's department.
I do similar to.
Congressman Paul Mitchell's department, not the state.
I don't know.
No, the state plays a role in that as well.
Tell us how.
Through the laws that my unit administers from the Warrant Office. Permits are also required from the state of Michigan under the state laws for placing fill material in the lake, making your yard larger, building a seawall, working in a marina, dredging sediments from the bottom of the lake.
So somebody could be violated state and federal at the same
Correct,
time?
yeah, that's correct.
Perfect. And then the discharges, though, as it relates to what the topic maybe is going to be comprehensively today, the discharge of sewage.
No, discharge under the regulatory programs of DEQ and Corps, the discharge in the context we're talking about now is like the discharge of fill material, the discharge of dirt. That's an Army Corps term. Discharge of dirt. I mean, placing.
I understand. If the seawall area is expanded and or if you're going ahead and having somebody dredge, it's the Corps.
And the state.
And the state.
So if you're building a seawall at your home at 10 Mile and Jefferson, you need a Army Corps permit under Section 404 and you need a DEQ permit under Part 325 submerged lands.
Perfect. Anything you want to add?
The only other thing is, as Canby mentioned, there are occasions where we're involved in environmental restoration projects. That's generally at the request of a local sponsor, and we're working, in coordination with them underneath, various federal authorities that allow us to work in that area.
Where's the office of the Army Corps of Engineers here in Macomb?
We're downtown in the federal building.
It's the only place. So anybody that has a complaint regarding seawalls, they go to the state, or they go to you, or they go to both?
Both.
Both? Both.
That's been my experience too whenever
I'm just asking because I want to make it as convenient for the customers that's paying your salaries. That's all.
And we partnered with the Corps to create a joint permit application. So anybody wishing to do that kind of work fills out one application. They send it to either agency. We share it immediately with either agency. It's a concurrent review. And in 99% of the times, a permit's issued from the Corps and a permit's issued from the DEQ for the same work.
If it is the same, and we have all these homes that have seawalls, I'm just thinking out of the box again, why wouldn't you be in the same office for those people as a customer service? Meaning one person, you don't need 20 in there, just one person from the state and the feds together when it comes time for that. Has that been talked about ever?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
So that takes resources.
Well,
That
I get it,
takes
but the
resources.
resource is already there if they're down.
It takes resources to house people in sites that are off-site. It almost doubles our budget when we have to move people. So we've tried to place our regional offices in locations that serve the communities in which we
How are
are.
they serving the community where the main seawall action is down here in Macomb County if they have to go downtown?
They're in, well, for the core, I can't speak for the core. but
That's
for-
that's the
for
only thing
DEQ,
I'm focusing on
located
the
our
core.
offices. Okay, well, you kind of asked a double question.
No, he brought, what's your first name?
Andy,
Andy brought up the fact that there could be a double permitting. I was being a-specific, one room, one-stop shop, take care of the customer, and we move forward. Moving on the overflow runoff, under the agenda, item D, now that we get at least an idea of what everybody has as far as their job responsibilities and duties, this overflow and runoff of storm sewer that I'm learning about is an interesting topic because a lot of this runoff comes because of sewers and storm that are not separated. And the topic of discussion that I want the legislators either to get involved with now is this. We have forced certain communities, such as Port Huron, through either the DEQ or some other branch of government, to separate their storm and their sewer. Did we not?
No.
We didn't force?
We forced them to eliminate the untreated CSO. So with the way that Michigan CSO program is written, you have to either eliminate the CSO through sewer separation or provide adequate treatment. And adequate treatment is usually through a retention treatment basin. That's, I think we haven't handled that, kind of walked you through what a retention treatment basin
Well,
is.
before we get there, has there been any communities that have had to separate?
They
Any
either
communities that had to separate?
Had to separate or provide treatment. That decision is at the community level to decide what they want to do.
Okay, because of cost, it's more cost-effective or cheaper to treat than to separate. Would you agree? Would we all agree at this table?
No, sometimes.
It depends on the communities.
Which ones have actually separated?
So when we originally started the CSO program back in the late 80s, when we first started to work on CSOs, I think a lot of folks of the 46 original communities, probably about half decided to separate and the other half decided to treat. Some of our larger communities, it makes sense that they treat and they use RTPs. Some of our smaller communities, it makes much more sense and it's more cost effective if they separate their sewers.
Treating would be putting more chlorine.
Treating is through a retention treatment basin, and there's some good details provided in this sheet that talks about what RTPs do.
In short, is it a basin that you hold,
both,
contain, and then treat?
Yes. It holds the smaller storms, bleeds that back. It allows larger storms to be screened, settled, and disinfected.
All right. And those water qualities before they in fact are ultimately discharged?
They have to meet all our water quality standards. We verify that, and
So-
then they discharge.
So when I say overflow, if there is runoff from either the communities here in Macomb or Oakland or wherever else these overflows are coming from, if the levels that are in place currently on E. coli are acceptable but our beaches are closed or our water alerts are in, how is that make logical sense to any of us at this table?
So that's a good question that you asked, and I think you asked it last time we were talking about.
Well, right, because I've got customers that I serve now as a public servant
Sure, and
that have
that's
asked
a
me,
good question.
Lucido, if currently there is levels of acceptability that are good, and those levels are prohibited for me using the beach and or the lake, how is it acceptable then? And they want me to change those levels, and I want your participation to tell me that those levels are acceptable because they brought, let me show you these waters.
So how about you let him fill in?
Well,
Staff
before,
explain.
I'll get to that. Before it is this. This was taken from the lake. I want to get it out here so everybody can see it.
that one's from Red Run.
That one's from Red Run. And the reason why we brought these as demonstrative, is information for you to look at is, I don't believe that a level that is acceptable by a state standard, that we still can't go on our beaches, or we can't go in our lake, is acceptable to the people. And that's why I'm asking for your help and cooperation. Otherwise, legislatively, somebody's going to tell me if they feel that this is acceptable, not they, the legislators. Sure. Because again, we're legislators to get a level that's going to be acceptable to the people that actually have to deal with this.
Right.
But if we don't have acceptable levels that make it available to them to go into those beaches or go into that lake, then that's what we're doing here today. Making a level or doing some initiative to make it a level that's safe for everyone.
Right. So you
Would
asked
we
that
agree
question.
that about 40% of our drinking water come from Lake St. Clair? Would we agree to that? If you don't know, I'll give you some statistical data. 40% of what I drink in my house, what my community drinks in my district, comes from Lake St. Clair. Would you agree? I see you shaking your head.
No, I drink the same water.
Good.
Yeah.
And I would agree that if I strangle or choke out a lake, that it can't function properly anymore, that it got so bad that I'm just chlorinating and chlorinating and chlorinating to kill, that eventually I'm drinking chlorine.
So we do two things. One, you asked this question of us last time, so we went back and we tried to answer that question. So Shannon's going to talk a little bit about the detail that she looked at to take a look at the GWK facility and see if those values correspond to any closures or concerns at beaches. And the second point is, based on what you asked us last time too, we currently have that draft MPDS permit in-house, and we're making changes on that.
What does that mean? Get more specific. Because I got to go back today and indicate to constituents, this is what we're going to do.
And I think that's good. So that basin was reconstructed in 2005. So that facility exists today. We took that facility, it was certified then and met all our requirements, but we took that facility and decided, what can we do to that facility to make some changes for some of these concerns? So the current draft permit that we have out, that Oakland County is looking at, now this is just a draft, does have some changes in that permit. One is they have to have a stormwater standard for new and redevelopment. So they have to come up with us and say, this is our new standard for new development and redevelopment that we're going to have. This standard will help control the amount of flow that goes to the basin that can ultimately be discharged from the basin. That's one factor. The second factor is the green infrastructure program. We're looking at green infrastructure there as well to do at least a couple pilots there that can help further reduce some flows that come in.
I want to go back in time. Once upon a time when I was driving out to Oakland County, 1200 North Telegraph, I used to see a lot of farms. This is 30 years ago.
Right.
A lot of farmland, a lot of rainwater that would come down and just penetrate the ground and just sit there. It wouldn't go anywhere. Now we build a lot of buildings and houses and put roads in and everything, and the water's coming down, it goes to the storm sewers, and it's building a lot more momentum or a lot more gallons of storm sewer instead of it going ahead and being sucked into the earth, sucked into, let's face it, there's just more concrete and mortar around, which is bringing about more storm water.
That's correct.
We also have a lot more toilets, sinks, showers that are flushing or utilized that's throwing a lot of sanitary. We didn't have that before because we had less population and they've grown over time. As a result, do you believe that there's so much stormwater and sanitary together that is not separated with Oakland that it is coming our way?
So I think there's 5 overall RTPs that discharge to the lake. 3 of them are in Macomb County, one's in Oakland County, and one's a joint operating district between Wayne County and Macomb County. I think if you look at those facilities and see what they're discharging, there's no currently untreated CSOs that are left. So all of them are treated, all of them go through RTPs. We have those permits in place now, and we're doing some of the things that you talked about. Where we're seeing increased stormwater flow, we're saying, hey, when you got a new development or a redevelopment, let's start controlling that so we reduce those flows coming in. So
when did we start that? When did we actually start that process?
So we started that process first in our City of Detroit permit.
What year?
2013.
So 3 years ago, roughly?
3-4 years ago, yes.
Okay, we're in 17 now, so about 3 years ago.
I think that's correct.
And in the 3 years, have you done any studies to see if it's actually working?
If the green infrastructure, we believe green infrastructure can help us.
By studies, that's what I asked.
Yeah, so there's a couple studies in Detroit's permit. Okay. There's been some other studies that have been.
What have you learned from your studies to
I think green infrastructure generally helps us in small storms and medium storms. Some of the real large storms, it doesn't help us as much.
Has there been any control factors that have been in place as it relates to having individuals be on alert that this is going to happen, that there's going to be an overflow?
No, yeah, we have a like Teresa says, we have a CSO notification program, and Dan and Laura administer that.
All right, how, in Oakland specifically?
Yep.
Because I'm looking at population, hold on. I'm looking at population, I'm looking at the numbers from Oakland County as it relates to how large their population is, how many residents actually are utilizing sanitary sewers and storm sewer over there, as opposed to Macomb, as opposed to Wayne. I know that this is a tri-county area problem. I do agree.
Sure.
That this is not something unique to up north. Up north has nothing to do really down here with our tri-county.
We have a lot of wet weather issues in southeast Michigan.
Correct. And when Commissioner Miller indicated, look, you know what, when we have these rains coming and everything, would you guys do us a favor because we had to divert? Would you not flush your toilets? Would you not go take showers? Would you not go and do anything, laundry and everything? Could you just wait a little bit so we can have the rainwater that comes down go through this, that are unseparated, and go to our lake instead of having us have to discharge or have it overflow? Did you remember that?
I think that was of the collapse.
Yeah, I understand them doing a collapse. If the collapse wasn't there, we still see the Red Run drain, where I used to own property over there, come up to certain levels like crazy after it rained, and then flood. And I said, how is this happening? And they said, well, what happens is the water's coming down because the topography level of Oakland County is higher than Macomb. And we have a runoff that's coming as a result of the storm sewers, and it's flooding the Red Run drain. And that thing is how deep? Does anybody know how deep the Red Run is? Anybody?
At least 20 feet.
It can adjust up to 30 feet difference.
In certain level areas.
And we're talking
Okay.
30 feet by...
It's a Grand Canyon. I call it the Grand Canyon of the North End.
Open sewer.
Exactly. It's one open sewer pit. And I noticed that when all these E. coli levels come down, and that's what we're doing today, to come up with a plan, and you'll see it on the very bottom here, possible solutions,
Right.
and then an action plan to put into place that is cost effective.
So let me talk a little bit about what we had. You asked us to take a look at the GWK facility and whether or not it caused the issues that we're seeing at Metro Park Beach. And Shannon took a look at this for us. I think she did a really nice job and came up with some conclusions.
Thank you.
So we have an engineer, and we looked at all the discharge dates and the beach closure dates. And when we looked at the discharge dates from the basin, we overlapped them with any of the closure dates from the beach closures. Now, they didn't match. There's occasional times where they matched, but about 80 to 90% of the time, the dates didn't match.
So based on that data, Shannon, are you saying that there's other factors that you're learning about, and what are those factors?
Yes, absolutely. So this goes to, have you ever heard of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative?
Yes.
A few years ago, in 2010, the federal government put out $16 million towards fixing beaches like this. Michigan grabbed about $3.5 million of it, and we went to town, and we fixed up quite a few beaches. One of them was Metro Park Beach. They had their own grant. Some of you are familiar with how much money the Army Corps, I guess you guys were involved. They made significant changes to that area. The whole Metro Park area was significantly, the wetland is in there now too. So this is exciting because we took, rather than just monitoring tools, we went after it and found sources and relationships. One of the things we're finding, and this is in Wisconsin too, Wisconsin has remediated about 60 beaches. So I'm a little jealous, we've got about 12 done. But what we found is when you're measuring E. coli, that signal of the indicator bacteria is good for about a quarter mile to a half a mile. So that means when I measure E. coli at the beach, I'm looking for a source that's within a quarter to a half mile away.
For source and origin?
For a source, exactly.
What about origin?
That's the next thing, that's my PCR DNA machine. So now we're gonna go after this. But here's even before that. So Macomb County goes out there regularly and they collect water samples. And they usually have to shoo off a flock of gulls and a flock of geese. Now here's the other problem. When you give food and water ad libitum, like you give as much food and water as you want to geese, they'll stay. And Metro Park's beach area is groomed in such a way that you have very short, beautiful grass. It's like a turf, like a golf course, and you have it right next to the water. So if I gave you all the food and drink you wanted and said there's nobody that's going to bother you, you're going to stay, and that's what they do. Now here's unfortunate.
But you have detective measures, as I've mentioned earlier, that the E. coli can be human or it can be mammal.
Exactly.
So I want to talk about humans. because those beaches are closed as a result of E. coli that have been human. Is that correct?
I don't think so.
Oh.
And now now watch this, So,
don't
St.
think
Clair
so.
County, are you familiar with Chrysler Beach? Chrysler Beach put $500,000 into some stormwater mitigation projects for their beach. They had hundreds of geese all over their beach
Is
area.
that Marysville?
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's I was gonna tell you, this is gross, but geese can make 2 pounds of poo per day.
So now we're into the poop part of the program.
Now we're talking poop. So if you have a significant amount of geese, and they've spent a lot of days there, 2 pounds per day per bird, and let's say they've been there for a few days, and now it rains. Everything that was on the beach has a very good chance of running right off into your water. Now here's the fun part, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna measure it. So what Chrysler Park did, the cities of Marysville, they put in all these stormwater mitigation projects, and they did something very significant that didn't cost a lot. If you put in some strategic grasses or landscaping, you can make it so the geese are not comfortable. And that's exactly what they did. They put up a little bit of a landscape barrier that made the geese not so cozy. So they're a little bit afraid, like what's behind, I want to eat my grass, but I'm afraid somebody's going to eat me because I can't see through the taller landscape. So now this is the fun part. We've been measuring water quality at Chrysler Park Beach. The highest of highs was like in the 2,000 E. coli. It was really high. So if it went high, it went high. After the mitigation project, the E. coli levels fell off a cliff. And there's a significant drop.
Have you had any beach closures over there in Marysville?
I haven't.
Does anybody know at this table whether there's been beach closures in the last 3 to 5 years in Marysville?
You know, Pete, a lot of times when those beaches are closed, it might not be for that. A lot of times I know people that live up there, the beaches will end up being closed after the beaches in Canada close for, on the Canadian side, they will close their beaches when they know that chemicals are being discharged. And so I know people that live along that coastline that watch the Canadian news so that they know when it's safe for their kids to
Glad you
swim.
shared that. So that's your bailwick then, right? That's a discharge, somebody's.
So here, can I bring this up though?
Yeah.
Since, I can't wait to talk at the end. But what you just talked about is probably the most important thing of all of this, is the alert system that was in place to protect our drinking water monitoring system.
I worked in St. Clair for 20 years.
That was there, that has been removed. That only cost everybody $0.25 per household to protect our drinking water monitoring system was removed.
Who's the rep up that way?
I don't understand why that happened, but also, how is it that last year, Canada dumped 2 major dumps of benzene and acid. Benzene, a huge, huge contributor to cancer. They still haven't reported how many gallons they have dumped or how many barrels they have dumped of benzene. But it happened, where Canada was alerted. Not one report on the United States side alerted anybody in the United States about what happened. Now, I had my family out in that lake that could have been exposed to benzene, straight as it could be.
When was this?
There was no alert in the United States side, but yet we know that they happened.
Mike, when was
the
this
only alert that
discharge?
happened was on our page.
Mike, when was it discharged? What year?
Last year.
Last year.
So if they did discharge
It was last
benzene,
year, late May.
whose authority at this table should have alerted the Americans on this site? Does anybody know?
We have no
Matt,
alerts to
Matt,
protect our
I'm asking
water.
a question. If the man's saying he's known, and these are people from these agencies, who was supposed to alert the Americans?
You might want to talk to, remember the burn off or the fire that happened a few months ago?
Yes.
On the Canadian side?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so
Grass fire.
talk to Representative Hernandez,
Yeah.
because he and I and Dan Rep. Lowers were on a call with some of the Canadian officials about them better alerting us to stuff like that, because people on the American side were freaking out and calling 911.
But wait a minute, Pam, with due respect to these representatives as well as yourself, this is the agency that should have been on notice.
But they may know better about what's going on with the Canadians alerting us,
So there
whether that communication is
Is there
taking
open
place.
communication with any of your departments on stateside? Who is that department?
So the state police is the one that's supposed to be notified from Canada. There's an international joint agreement that explains how the process works. There's a process and procedure for it. Sometimes the Canadians follow it, sometimes they don't.
What are you talking about? If this is a joint agreement, but I'm asking a question. If there's a joint agreement How do we not enforce that agreement then, as citizens of the
Because it's done
state?
at a federal level.
I'm asking a question. If there's a joint agreement with the state police.
I just
you can't-
answered. The answer is.
So has the
it's done
state
at a
police
federal
taken
level.
initiative to bring, or the attorney general's office?
I can't speak for the state police.
Did the attorney general's office do anything?
I can't speak for them either.
Yeah, you might want to follow up with Hernandez alone.
I guess that grass fire that they're saying mysteriously was a grass fire over there. It's impossible that was grass fire. I live at near 13 in Jefferson. You walked outside that night as it was happening. There wasn't nobody here that was there, and I have thousands of followers that did the same thing. You walked outside, you can smell chemical flat out in the air. It was undeniable that that was chemicals in the air that landed into our water that further endangered our drinking water.
Yeah.
Period. It's not no grass fire.
Mike, hold on a second. Representative Hertel has something to add to that about this.
Well, I want to go back. To Mike's point, we had a system that detected this in real time. It was
water
put in
quality
place
monitoring system.
at federal funding. We
That's
lost
right.
the federal funding, and it was not kept. And it's been mothballed, and the information I have is that the equipment is now unusable, and we'd have to rebuild the entire system.
The local communities chose not to fund it.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Local communities.
I
That's
understand.
right.
Which would have been about 25%, I think, on most individuals' water bill.
That's right.
But
I want to
that
go
was not
back.
brought up to the residents to
Yes,
voice
they
that.
were.
It was
Yes, they
absolutely.
were. The residents did allow the local communities to defund it. It's on the residents. They're government.
I want to go
But
back.
that wouldn't have been, if you live in St. Clair Shores, that wouldn't have been you. That would have been the residents in Marysville and in St. Clair.
And there's a water right that should have been in Harrison Township. My point is, yeah, it might have been alerted in some paper in an article over here, but there's no national news about, hey, we're going to lose this drinking water monitoring system. It's only going to cost everybody 25 cents a household to maintain. You're telling me that everybody out there wouldn't maintain this for 25 cents?
They did it.
All right, hold on a second. Hold on.
Why would publicize?
We'll get- Wait a minute. This issue.
I think we're jumping topics. I'm sorry. I'm not-
Right, I got some issues that we're gonna look into, because what I've learned from Karen here on behalf of Commissioner Miller's office, okay, is that system goes all the way down from,
Lake Huron.
All the way to Lake Huron.
It was Homeland
So-
Security money that funded it from.
so we're gonna look into that, because I think that's important, that monitoring system at least give us some notice as citizens, so we're not affected if the state police doesn't, I don't understand, but if the state police has a duty and obligation to have a joint agreement with Canada, and the state police were in fact notified, or were not, we'll get to that, then we have to figure out why it is that we, the citizens, weren't notified. Even without a system, Don, even without a system.
Real quick, I want to get back to the line you were going down, because I think you're going in an important area. And the beach in Marysville, I understand that issue, and the geese population around Lake St. Clair is an issue. And that, I think we're talking about two different things here. The shoreline in Lake St. Clair and in Harrison Township, south of the Clinton River, you can see, you can smell after a sewer discharge. There's no question about it. And direct correlation with a major rain event. And for my information, and correct me if I'm wrong, there have been tests that have showed human DNA in the muck that is on the shoreline in my community, correct?
Right, that was in part of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative project with Dr. Joan Rose and the Macomb County Health Department.
So we know that's not from geese
Right.
polluting the beaches.
Well, it's a both.
So-
So it's a both issue.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to get to is, so there's two things. There is a PCR machine at Metro Park.
Absolutely.
So if you want to do source tracking, we can go in that direction. And that would be a recommendation, that would be good to do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things here is knowing what we're looking at, because I think we're looking at two different issues. You do have the geese population issue, and I would like to talk with you about ways that we can maybe do some of the same things they did in Marysville. I live 3 houses off Lake St. Clair. I have a park at the end of my street, and the geese population has ruined that park for all intents and purposes. So I understand that's a problem. But I also think we can't deny the fact that we have a sewage problem, and there is human DNA that's creating an E. coli problem, at least in my community on my shoreline. I don't know the discharge situation in Marysville and what flows there, but I can tell you out of the Clinton River what flows down my shoreline has human DNA in it, and it's directly from sewage overflows. So let's talk about both issues and figure out how we can fix both issues.
And we are all about looking for the solutions for those things. what the work that Shannon's doing with her group and the work that staff is doing with trying to get corrective actions on the rest of our controls and eliminating and doing some green infrastructure to get water out of the system, those are things that we have to work on together. There's lots of blame that can be laid here, and it's easy to do, but there's a piece that keeps getting missed and nobody talks about it very often. It's the loss of our wetlands to Lake St. Clair and what that happens in the muck creation. And I made Kevin come down today on his day off. He's supposed to be on vacation. And I want to make sure he gets an opportunity to at least explain how muck forms and why it forms now, more so than would have done historically. So if you would allow Kevin to at least go over that, I think it'll be interesting to you all and really informative.
Kevin's going to talk about the loss of wetland.
Muck creation and what happens with muck because of loss of wetlands.
So I think kind of one of the interesting things about Lake St. Clair is the ecology of the lake. I mean, this lake is so very different than what people think of when they think of the big lakes in terms of its productivity now and as it's ever been. I mean, fisheries and wildlife and waterfowl that drew people here anyway, and they continue to draw people here, and it's a huge business for people to live here and recreate here. That same productivity though, and the way we've changed it, we've all changed it, historically we've changed it, really also alters how the lake is working, and it's not that it's not working. Obviously fisheries continues to be outstanding in this lake, but the extensive wetlands, the river delta that comes out of St. Clair River, that's still pretty functional and still supports a ton of waterfowl and waterfowl hunting, but those wetlands were all around the lake. And now we've got lots of seawall and lots of docks, and because people want to be here, and so I get that. But when you separate that and kind of cut off some of that that connection to the land, things that they're trying to restore at the Metro Park, places that would have normally, there were always plants that grew in the lake. There was always forms of algae that grew in this lake, and periodically those things die off because that's just what lakes do, productive lakes do. That stuff would wash inshore. That's what would help build those marshes and would help build those spawning areas for fish and for wildlife. You cut that off, and you still get stuff that washes in, still get stuff that's being produced. Now you see it. Now it comes up to your seawall. And so there's that level of productivity that's part of what this lake is. That's what drives this lake and all of its productivity. But, what was it, 2011 that we came out to your place, Mike? Mike called, and now you were new to the lakeshore, right? Just bought a place?
I've been a part of the lake my whole entire life, but yes, I moved to the lake in 2011.
So Mike buys this great place, he gives us a call and says, what is all this crap, that's a technical term, in my front yard? And so we came out and took a walk around, and we come out by the request of Brandenburg as well to look at some stuff. People looking at their front yard saying, what is all this stuff? Either they've been Lakeshore residents for years and they don't quite remember it looking like this, and of course people, where they grew up is different places. There is always been vegetative matter, debris, stuff like that washes up, and it's just how the lake functions. Now we had wetlands to suck that stuff up. You didn't see it, it helped, but now we don't, so now we're seeing it. But it is changing also. And actually, I'm real curious about these samples. I don't know if I'm the only one in the room. I'm like, I want to get in that bottle right now. Because so the stuff floating up.
Don't hesitate, jump right on in.
I will later.
Some croutons on the top.
So the top stuff is what I want to talk about. We talk about muck. And muck is not a technical term in this setting. There are muck soils. We can talk about wetlands, different issues. But muck is gross stuff on a beach. That's what everybody uses it for. And we keep saying, the scientist part of me says, I wish we wouldn't call it muck. But I mean, you walk down to a beach and it looks gross, and it's like, it's mucky. So when we talk about muck can be, I was on Saginaw Bay yesterday, digging in muck. The muck up there looks very different right now than it will a month from now, than it will here, than it will on Lake Erie, where I'll be in 2 weeks.
Do you know what the source and origin of muck is? Meaning, how did it start?
It depends on what we're talking. So because we don't know what muck is, the source can be all kinds of things, but typically it's most often plant matter, plant or algae. And that stuff can be stuff that's just growing out in the lakes.
Which does not break down?
It will. But the thing is, so that this change that I want to talk about, especially that we're seeing here, this muck, that stuff that's floating on the surface, if it's what I think it is, there's a blue-green algae, a cyanobacteria, that's filamentous.
Here,
So it
why don't
grows
you- Why don't you
filaments.
take this muck that's
Yeah,
in this
okay.
water and take a look at it. If you want to
I will,
touch it,
actually, I'll
touch
take
it.
the little
open
where I
it.
can actually get my hand in the
And
bigger
if
one.
you want to take this muck, go right ahead. Who want to bring it on down there? Everybody take a look at it because I want to be able to say that your family will swim in this water the way it is.
There is live stuff floating around. Now here, I just want this to be out for verification for everybody's notice before you start opening this up and touching this, just so.
It's
not productive. Straight up, this is not that I took the samples. I didn't purposely scoop up any muck, all I did is tip that in the water and let it come in.
So let
that's
Kevin
just what,
finish
that's
his
it.
presentation, so
That's
I
just
think
what
it's
flown
being
in.
helpful.
And, you know, so there's really no muck sample within that.
Yeah, no.
But, you know, that's just what flew in and the one, but
So-
again, I just.
What we're seeing here, these balls at the top are the crux. That's what we saw out at your place. Again, plants wash up, plants die, plants break down. That's what supports this system. This stuff, I'm guessing, is a stuff called Lingbia. A bunch of researchers, Donna Cashin at Wayne State, has been doing a bunch of research on this in Lake St. Clair. This is a cyanobacteria, filamentous, so it grows like hair, that takes over the bottom of lakes. Started showing up in Lake St. Clair less than 10 years ago, Lake Erie a few years before that. It's a southeast, if this is that species, it's a southeast U.S. algae, cyanobacteria that's been moving up through the Great Lakes system. The thing that's interesting about this, and you'll see, when we went out to Mike's place, it forms these insanely dense mats that can grow vegetation. It looks like shoreline until you try to step in it and sink up to your waist or deeper. When we start teasing it apart, it does this. It's all these little balls, and they're really interesting when you pull them apart. It's very woolly. So I think there's something about the cellular structure of this new cyanobacteria to our lakes that's different than what we maybe historically have seen. So, and I don't know this is where the researchers would take over, but to me, the way this stuff is so tough, it will break down eventually, but does this stuff, to me, take a lot longer to break down? We were seeing basically an ecological shift. So if this stuff shows up in our lake, now we're getting a lot of stuff that balls up, washes in, entrains fish and garbage and other stuff, and doesn't break down on a week's or a month's basis. You hope for a big offshore breeze to blow it to the other side. But so you're seeing, you've got this combination of natural processes, very productive lake, things, and we should always be seeing, shouldn't be surprised to see plants washing up periodically and things like that.
Is this a state issue through the DEQ? Because I haven't heard the Army Corps of Engineers say anything about, you have nothing to do with this muck that he's talking about, do you?
We don't.
No? So you're muckless at this point?
So far, so good.
Okay. The reason why, Kevin, I'm asking these questions is because muck creation has new beginnings of things that are, there's certain muck that you're saying, we don't know what the source and origin is yet. We know it's there, we don't know where it came from, and we don't know quite certain how to handle it. Is that right?
Well, I would say this is similar to a lot of other invasives that we deal with. You know, this is something that Tammy can speak to in terms of the carp issue, but we talk about other things that have changed. This is not the first thing to Lake St. Clair that shouldn't be there. You want to talk about common carp, you want to talk about zebra mussels, you want to talk about spiny
We know
whale.
that that's coming in from foreign ships and everything else. That's what our government said, that it was coming in, it was attached to certain ships, brought into our Great Lakes, and now it caused problems like zebra mussels and some of these carp, these Asian carps, they were not formed in our lakes. They came from other.
We have no evidence of live bighead silver or black carp in our Great Lakes. So let me say that right now.
And right now we're still dealing with those issues, right?
We're preventing them from getting there.
Can I bring this up here? I will 100% verify that the muck is not all sewage overflows. The muck is primarily dead aquatic plant life, normal lake debris mixed in along with our sewage overflows.
And how can you support that, Mike?
But what, let me ask you this. What fuels the growth of our plant life within Lake St. Clair? Would you be confirmed to say a sewage overflow would help fuel the plant life in Lake St. Clair?
I would say nutrients, and so yes.
Okay, so thank you.
Any source of nutrients.
If you go south on the lake, I'm a fisherman. Any fisherman out there will verify this. Two things have always been told. You go south of the Clinton River, you have plant life 5-10 times the amount of plant life than there is north of the Clinton River. It's fueling this.
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, Anchor Bay is solid vegetation and the flats that Kevin talked about, I don't agree with that statement at all.
Can we do this, Mike? I need to do this because it's getting later. I want to finish A through E, and then we're opening up for discussion. Please. Separation of sewer systems, drinking water monitoring, water quality control board, infrastructure replacement, greater coordination of local, state, and federal agencies. Do you people believe in this room, we're going to go right to E, as in excellence for the customer. Do you believe that you're doing all you can, speaking together and coordinating your efforts all together, or can it be better?
Well, I think communication can always be better. I don't care what the avenue is. It can always be better. It is definitely a focus for me and my staff and our relationship with our friends in DNR as well as our relationship with our friends in agriculture. If you look at what we're doing in the Western Lake Erie Basin as it relates to the domestic action plan, the same things we're doing down there are things we can be talking about up here. And we do talk. We talk often. We talk daily with our friends from EPA. So we try our hardest to coordinate. There's always going to be some lapse. It just is. We all have different agendas, we all have different goals, but the end goal is always to make sure we have safe public health and environment for the citizens of Michigan. So,
if there's something that's spotted within the lake, do you put notice on everybody, meaning is there a certain, let's say that the fishery guys over here see something, they're not quite sure, then you send that information to the DEQ and the Corps, all, so that everybody is in the loop at the same time.
First, if we see something, depending on what it is, so we obviously don't want to send something that's irrelevant to the agent you're sending it to. But, for example, we coordinate all the time with our colleagues in Ontario on fisheries matters, all the time. DHS is a prime example. I was in constant contact with them. So, or if there's something on water quality we see, we immediately contact our colleagues in DEQ.
Is that a protocol? Is that a protocol that's pursuant to policy?
It's pursuant to internal relationships that have been built over a long time. So people like Jim in his office.
So there's nothing in a written policy, not saying that you need one, but it makes good business sense that every department is on notice, because there may be 30 years somebody told me they have over here, or you did. Didn't you say 30 years?
Yes.
You may have seen this in the past where somebody that just got into the department may not have.
So here in Southeast Michigan, we do have our fish kill policy, which anytime we do have an event where we have a loss of fish, the two agencies do contact and communicate with each other.
Which we just spent a lot of time doing with Mike and Gary and Jim and Jim's guys in the field office in Macomb.
Is there an information catcher from all your departments? If you don't understand it, I'll be very specific. Somebody who gets the information hot off the press that instant about the email and brings it to a department head and says, we just got notice of this. Yes or no? It's not a real bad question. Like, my office has a front desk and a back desk. That's as much room that they give me in Lansing. And as a result, the front desk is going to tell the back desk is going to disseminate the information. Do you have that same protocol in your departments with other departments?
I would say less formally than what you have. I mean, we also.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. And the answer is yes, but sometimes our back desk gets the information before the front desk does, sir.
Right.
So the matter is one of communication, and I think we have right now the quality of life agencies in which the directors communicate freely and open with each other. That's Ag, Department of Ag and Rural Development, Department of Environmental Quality, and Natural Resources.
Perfect.
We communicate frequently and openly, and all of our agencies have a public information officer who works with the front office for us, which would be the governor's office, who has an information officer who communicates freely and openly.
So each department, for this purpose of this discussion, has a information officer, each department, that would give notice to the appropriate person who would handle what it is that needs to be handled.
When we have large issues come in, yes. Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I think you're keying in on here. I also want to talk about one other form of communication that we haven't talked about, and where there's a lot of passion, and I get that with communication related to chemical spills, things that subject your family to some vulnerability. Completely understand with that. So we have two things. One, we have the mutual aid agreement between all of the Great Lakes states and Canada and Ontario. This is an agreement signed by our governors that says when we have things like an invasive species, a new invasive species that comes in, we communicate immediately as a jurisdiction of response with those other jurisdictions to get a collaborative response on issues related to the Great Lakes.
What is that agreement called again?
That's the mutual aid agreement. And that-
AIDE, right?
Yes, sir, and I can, through Anna, get you that information.
Please do,
Okay.
because I want to see what it is that the state police should have been communicating to our
No,
government.
that's a separate issue. I'm
Oh,
talking
whoa,
about
wait a minute, isn't
No.
that not part of Canada?
It's not mutual
That
aid.
is mutual, the mutual aid agreement that I'm talking about is invasive species. That's another large issue.
So we don't have an agreement when there's a spill of toxic chemicals?
Now, I want to get to that secondly here. So we have agreement with Canada, which is called the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement. And under that agreement, it is the federal governments that communicate with one another on things. But also with that agreement, there is state jurisdiction and communication lines with that. This issue on the benzene, I don't know anything about it, and so, but I want to say this. We do have a Great Lakes Environmental Committee meeting coming up here in June. And we have a representative who sits on that committee for the state of Michigan.
Who is that representative?
That's John Allen with Office of the Great Lakes. And what I will do as a matter of action today, sir, is take back this issue of notification because that falls under one of the direct annexes under that Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement, chemicals. And we will have that brought up or at that meeting somehow have an answer back to us about how.
We're as good as the people that we serve, but more importantly, the ones that are in charge of those that have to give notice, such as Canada, if they're not giving us notice, what sanctions should be brought as a result of an agreement that they have?
Since 1987, again, I'm trying to give you ammunition here to go talk about this, okay? Since 1987, there has been a verified over 800 chemical spills through St. Clair River into Lake St. Clair from the Canada side. So it's not just this one dump of benzene. 800 verified spills. That's not even including ones that are unverified, like this grass fire that happened earlier this year. I'm just trying to give you ammunition
No,
for you.
and so I would like to talk with you after about that, but because I don't want to dominate the
Thanks.
RAP's agenda.
Okay, you know what? There's so many different issues, Mike. I want to try to lump these together. Separation of water systems, which is ultimately going to a water quality board, which is ultimately infrastructure replacement. We already learned something very valuable that happened December 24th, 2016. That is that our infrastructures as a whole are having major, major problems. And I know the governor's initiative, who actually, not you three guys, but the rest of this table work for, actually we do. He's like our CEO. Said we're going to put together an infrastructure funding and we're going to go ahead and put as much as we can in there. Recently, I think most of that money's all gone. So we really don't have anything in infrastructure. Unless the rainy day fund is supposed to be the infrastructure fund, which he wants to keep about $1 billion in that. Because we know how bad our infrastructures are.
In his budget bill, he did propose some additional infrastructure money.
But we haven't finalized the budget yet, have we? We're still out to lunch right now, but.
He proposed it, though.
He-
So
There's
it wasn't-
$25 million.
It's a start, right?
Okay, you know what?
It's 25 million worth.
It's a big steep hill that we're all sitting on right now, and the reality is that we talk about separation of sewer and storm. We talk about retention basins. I've been learning about how much basin we would need. I guess it's the size of
Basically, White Claw, Harrison Township.
Harrison Township, that's how big the basin would be needed to store that type of water when we have the discharge. I don't want to see any discharge anymore, and I'll tell you why. It's our lake in Macomb. If I go around this room, by a show of hands, does anybody live here in Macomb County? Any one of you people? One? One of you here actually will feel what I'm feeling and the rest of these reps that live here. The rest of these people from this area. Guys, I gotta tell you something. I grew up in St. Clair Shores. My family went to the lake every day. We swam, we fished, we did exactly what the rest of this community here has done. We didn't even hear these problems. I didn't hear it until the 70s when PCB was being at the foot of Bon Bray and Bon Hur, thrown in the car wash area over there, and the levels were out of control, and the fish were growing 3 heads. And you guys know it. As a result, I never heard of beach closure. As a result, I never had a problem going with the boat in the lake. As a result, I never had a problem, period. The businesses thrived, the community was in sync, and people loved it because it's a $1 billion industry. people want to have assurance. They want to be able to understand that there's somebody doing something for them. This has been going on now for years, these levels and everything, and I truly appreciate studies that started 3 years ago. I really do, because we got to come to a conclusion. The purpose of why you're here is an action plan. I want an action plan by every one of you that is going to go ahead and take into consideration certain of the dialogue that's happening here and how long this is going to take. Because when I was hired as a lawyer, they said, how long is this process going to be? When can I expect a conclusion? How much is it going to cost me? These are business decisions that need to be looked at now. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. Every one of us. And I understand we have, Kevin, brand new aquatic life that is being affected every day. And I understand from the toxicology that, hey, we got to do some testing on this stuff. But I'm more concerned about discharge right now. I'm more concerned about why our sewers are sitting there with crap in them and are dumping into our lakes because we can't hold it.
Okay, so can I ask a question?
Always.
Okay, thanks. We agree with you. I mean, that's our job every day, is to try and eliminate and minimize pollution to the environment. I'm looking to you and to the rest of the legislators in the room to help identify the financial solutions to get there. Because this isn't a DEQ funded issue. This is a local unit of government funded issue. Certain communities have done a really great job of going forth and putting on insurance on their infrastructure, and others have not.
So when they talk about sewer separation in Oakland County many years ago, and I'll get you the exact year, and they said,
well, Phil could probably tell you too.
Phil, yes, that I'll direct it to you. Okay. When we had people from Oakland County meet with Macomb County and talk about sewer separation, and whether or not, because we have video of this. We had a prior Public Works Commissioner who's no longer there, who had made the statement, 750,000 gallons of raw sewage, million of raw sewage was dumped in over here. And it's coming from Oakland County.
Combined sewage, but treated.
And my concern is, even if you treat partially,
not raw.
I want this done, and I'll tell you why. I don't think it's fair to the homeowners that actually live there and pay taxes. I don't think it's fair for the community that use that lake and boat, the beaches that are used by the citizens. This is ridiculous.
So we don't, there's no disagreement, and I if you don't mind, there's no, I don't think anybody at this table disagrees with you, none of us. I'm still gonna go back to, it's so easy, and we've been doing it for years, to say this is a problem. But what we need is, what is the solution? Because my staff work every day, working with those communities, forcing them to make improvements with no financial support to give them. The financial support comes from you. The financial support comes from the federal government. The financial support rests with the citizens. It's not resting with the DEQ. We don't have that funding. We barely have funding to keep our staff in our chairs and maintain an office.
Could you make an action plan, and I want everybody to listen, an action plan that specifically allows everything you're saying that doesn't come, you need this and you need this.
We've done it.
My mother used to say to
We've
me,
done it.
son, you need an education. Why? So you can be somebody. So that you can go ahead and make money to support your family. I'm asking you, if I need to get funding, if there's a federal grant out there, if there's a state grant out there, if I need to know what it is in regards to my environment that I need to do to assist you in your job, what I need to do legislatively to bring to the legislature to get my colleagues that are here at Macomb, as well as around the state, to give me that vote to get you what you need to tell me that. Because I don't know what your job is until today.
That's the question about this meeting.
So I guess it's, you know, we have an open door policy. We're more than happy to.
I don't have the time because I'm up there 3 days a week and I'm trying to do my district. I need you to put it on paper so that I follow your protocol when I'm done to help the citizens here in Macomb. I live here. This is where our action is.
Well, I live in Southeast Michigan too, so I feel your frustration. I think you're directing your anger at us, and that's
It's not anger.
Well,
it's passion because
we're very passionate about our jobs too.
my mom and dad are asking me the same question. You mean my grandchildren and great-grandchildren can't swim in a lake today? I said they closed it.
Yeah, and I
How did they close a lake?
And we don't want to, you know, I don't want to argue with you. I mean, and I feel like we're arguing, and I don't think that's.
I'm not arguing. I'm passionate.
Okay.
Here's what
Well,
I think we're trying to
it's not coming across.
and I think I heard you say this, there is a comprehensive report that would detail all of the issues that are leading to the environmental impacts on Lake St. Clair and Southeast Michigan.
I wouldn't say there's a comprehensive report.
Can we put together a comprehensive? So if you say to me, and I
That's
think
already
this is
been
what
done,
Peter
not to
said.
jump into the Blue Water Commission report 1997, the Blue Water Commission report number 2 in 2008 that was done by constituents like this. Doug March championed that, that's out there.
I'm familiar with that, but I think what we need to see is, in current state right now, these are the areas where we need to separate sewer systems, this is where we need more expansion. Okay. I'd like
Does it
to
have
see
a
that.
cost analysis in it?
And then, because what we need to get to is,
Maybe not to that detail.
I think what happens with
We
this
can tell you
issue-
where, we can tell you where they're at, what improvements need to happen. And I think the key, and I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, I
That's
don't mean to. The key here really is, this, it sounds so simple on paper, like we just need to do this. Well, it's not. Because in some locations, it makes a lot of sense to go in and separate a sewer out. In other locations, especially in certain sections of Detroit where they've lost so much population, that doesn't make any sense. It might make sense to do a completely different foreign way of thinking about it. Maybe having a sewer that was a combined sewer before used as a storm sewer and then build a separate sewer on top of it to handle the low flow. So there isn't this one-size-fits-all fix.
But Mars's report was over 20 years ago
It was.
now.
Yeah, I
And
was here.
therefore, we have Kevin talking about the differential and the toxicologist saying things have changed.
They have.
And people have populated in 20 years. And we've lost Detroit for whatever reason as far as the population. But ultimately, the same cause and effect is there. The same thing is there. It's our lake is still contaminated, and it's not getting any better.
I think what we're saying is that so I understand that the St. Clair Shores, the way the homes were built, we have drain tiles underneath the homes that feed into our combined sewer system, about 25% of the city, and it takes up a huge capacity when we have rain. That's a much different problem than, say, the northern end of Macomb County, where there's just been a ton of infrastructure built on old, outdated sewer systems. So what I'm asking for is that we put together a plan that shows these are the different areas, these are the concerns we have, this is how we would go about fixing it. Then we can put together an action plan based on cost. Because what I hear with this problem for so many years, every time I talk about it, somebody says, well, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and we'll never get the money and we can't fix it. That's not okay to me, and I can't go back to my residents and say, hey, we can't afford it, so we can't fix it, you're gonna have to continue to deal with this. At some point, we have to say, here's what we have to do, here's what it's gonna cost, and then let us go and find the money and the resources. There's grants available at the federal level. I think the current presidential administration wants to work on some infrastructure projects, and there might be some opportunities down the road, but if those opportunities arise, I wanna be able to say, hey, we have a plan. Shovel-ready plan, this is the money we need. If we continue to wait, we're not going to be ready when that occurs. So can we put together a comprehensive report that shows what needs to be done throughout Macomb, Oakland, St. Clair County, anywhere that's putting water into Lake St. Clair that's impacting the environment, and then start working on that plan. And it could be a 20-year plan. I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight, but we have to start somewhere.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
This meeting was long overdue. Congratulations for bringing this about. Two things really need to happen. First, get rid of Morocco, which we've done, and have this meeting. I love this, because for the first time, we've got everybody here who's a player. And this issue is important to me because I'm a sailboater. I was sailboating in Lake St. Clair back in the 70s, and I'm sailboating out there again today, almost 30 years separation or whatever time. I've got to boat again, and I've noticed the difference. How much worse it is out there. In fact, we still can't use Lake St. Clair to swim at Metro Beach where I swam as a kid. The question everybody asks us, how come, how come, how come? Well, I think the answers are here in this room.
Are you done, Ken?
No, I'd just like to say, I want us to have another meeting again like this, Pete, and I'd like to hear exactly.
I don't want to get angry, and I apologize if you find that my tone is anger, but as a trial lawyer for 30 years, I have to convince you that we have an issue. Wait a minute, and I understand, Pete, you've got so many different puzzle pieces. As Representative Hertel indicated, St. Clair Shores, 25% are not on sewer separation. I get it. I understand. They have a special need, and or they have to be maybe charged with the dollars coming from within. versus the north end. I get it. Bricks and mortar, you built up so much infrastructure out there regarding it. But ultimately, even if I take you through it and say, please, give me your special skill, your knowledge, give me all your expertise, and tell me, this is the path I would take. Phil,
So
this
one of
is
the
the
things-
least resistant. And then Karen's got to talk now because on behalf of Commissioner Miller's office.
I've got to say something.
So real quickly, one of the things we are trying to do is increase asset management. So we started to do that, and I'm going to go back to 2012, 2013, and I apologize about that. But we started putting that in our major MPDS permits. Now we're starting an effort to look at each community as well and start a CMOM effort, capacity management operation maintenance. So these current cities don't have MPDS permits, but we're talking about getting permits out for them, certificates of coverage for them, and then they'll have an asset management program that they have to start doing. So these programs are going to start helping individual communities maintain their assets, maintain their sewer structure better. Now, in terms of funding, where does the money come from to do this? It's a lot of different places.
But recommendations are helpful, Phil, for
Right.
all of us.
Right.
I may go to Congressman Mitchell's office and say, look, you got some federal funding, can we get it down here?
Right.
Commissioner Brown can go through his office and say, yeah, we're trying to help. Commissioner Miller can go ahead at this point here and say, look, I've got some state grants that I want you to put in for, or, you know, Representative Hertel or Representative Hornberger or Representative, any one of us can bring this up.
So
that's where you guys got that skill and knowledge of 30 years plus in those departments that can help us.
And we're adding these permits, and we're talking about it in stakeholder groups, and we're getting these things done. It takes time, and it takes time to get the funding as well. So we need your help. We need your help as well.
Tell us what you want us to do. Tell us on paper, though.
We can do that.
But you're gonna give me an answer. Be a pain in the ass. I want you to be a pain in my ass, and I'll tell you why. Because I've got constituents, I would love for them to call you, but guess what? I decided to take the job where they call me. And now I'm asking for a lifeline here in a lake that is contaminated.
So
And I'm sorry to say this, the lake is contaminated.
So on the
It's not the same lake that I swam in.
On the big picture issues, absolutely. If you want to be the conduit to get them back to us, that's fabulous. On the more local things, the best place is to get them directly to staff. Because let me explain what happens when it comes to you, okay? We have a resource issue. We are incredibly small staffed in all of the quality of life.
This must be your own department. You got 6 people.
It's not that much anymore. So let me explain what happens when you take that phone call, okay? This is the wrinkle that happens for us. When you take that phone call and you make contact with my office, it's now what goes into our logged letter system. So now it's 5 to 6 people who end up having to touch it versus having your constituent call Andy directly and say, hey, I got an issue.
I talked to them.
Yep, Andy talks to a lot of them, but when it comes to you, that means it has to come to me, which means it has to go to my administrative secretary, which means it has to go to the director's office, which means it has to go to her person, and then funnel back through. So it's awesome when you want to handle the big stuff. When you handle the little stuff, you just wasted, and I don't mean it that way.
No, I understand.
But you took hours away from work being done. So the best thing is always have the constituents contact us directly. If you want to be copied on that stuff, we are all about making sure you're in the loop. But when you take it, you just added 8 hours to the process.
But we're not taking it, they're calling us. Most people don't know a state representative exists. When they take the time to look up our individual numbers, it might be the most important issue in the world to them.
Absolutely.
We're held accountable to them, not you. Every 2 years, we're up for re-election again, and that's when we know whether or not we're doing a good job.
Well, I do work for them, so I do feel like I'm
Well, I work directly for my individual
You have to
district.
talk
So
now.
we have to literally follow up. It's our job to make sure that they're getting the information from your department, and it's my job to also make sure that you follow it up with them and that they're getting the answers that they need, or they're unable to answer their question and I've got to punt it over to another department. They don't know how to navigate state government. That's our job to do.
And so can I interrupt? No, I need to interrupt because I appreciate you aligning, but you can come directly to us. That's what we're here for.
And you've been always great. You always get back to me right away. I've had an issue with the DEQ. They called over and someone said, well, call your state representative, have them change the law. And it goes back to funding. Tell us how much you need and we'll figure out where to get the money from, or try to. I don't know what quantity we're looking at. I've heard $500 million, I've heard $40 billion. What do we need to do to separate storm and sewer? What is the cost? I sit on the appropriations committee and I don't know what the dollar amount is that's needed to do that, so I can make that ask, so we as legislators can make that
But
ask.
don't leave here today, because I will give another notice of a follow-up, so we can go over the action plan that you're gonna provide to us. Because all of us have decided we're gonna work on this issue this summer, when everybody's out there. We'll call you to the lake. Why? We think we need to get some people out of the office and get some ideas as to how to fix, just listen to me, try to fix that which those people are yelling about over there. That's all. And I want your help. We're asking for help. Now, Karen's gonna say something from Commissioner Miller's office, and then I want Mike to go ahead and open it up for discussion.
So I'm just, sort of the elephant in the room with regard to the sewage system, and we've had a collapse, and I work with all of your agencies. I'm working currently with the Army Corps on 2 projects. One is Section 219, which found out that Macomb is not one of the counties in the state of Michigan that can immediately access Section 219 funding. So we're looking at Chapton, which is a basin. We're looking at trying to improve that infrastructure. So I'm working with your agency right now, and hopefully working with Congressman Mitchell and others to try to DEQ with Laura. I feel like I know you guys like I know my brothers and sisters, because we've been dealing with the sewer collapse, which has been horrific. And exposed infrastructure problems that, you know, life cycle. We have to talk about life cycle of these sewers. I mean, this was a sewer made in the 70s. So we're dealing with these issues, and we're going through an ACO, and by the way, getting punished, right? We're getting punished because there was a sewer collapse. You know, who's ever fault, whatever happened, we don't know that yet. I will just tell you today, though, all the pillars are done, and we're going to go down to that 60 feet, and we're actually going to get down to the sewer. So here's where we are. So I appreciate all that the DEQ has done. You're holding everybody's feet to the fire, and I can attest to that personally. As an agency, I understand what you need to do to make sure that local communities can actually fix these issues. DNR, we've worked in the fishery, so I used to work for Congressman Miller along with Don Brown in Congress, fully aware of the water monitoring system, which actually she got funding for initially, federal government. We tried desperately to convince the state of Michigan to continue that. Danny Accavetti was able to get about $250,000 to sustain it for a little bit of time, and then we couldn't get the local communities to buy it. So I will tell you that Commissioner Miller has been committed to these issues for a very, very long time. She is a Lake St. Clair voter. She's a nanny goat. She has been involved with Lake St. Clair just for a long time. She wants to do whatever she can to improve quality of life, using our office to improve quality of life, which includes the St. Clair, Lake St. Clair, for sure. So we are looking at talking about asset management. We have we've only been on the job here for 6 months, and we've dealt with this major issue. But we're looking at all facets in our department to see how we can help and we can be the force for good. And so I can just tell you her commitment from state, local, however you all want to do it. I appreciate Representative Lucido pulling everybody to the table, because I think that's what we need. We need a game plan. We need a game plan. And so if we can, at all levels, use our creativity, understanding with all of your expertise, which we appreciate, how to pull it all together, then we go out there and we sell it to the public. How is it, Mike, that we couldn't get the public to agree to 25 cents a year?
I don't think
I don't know. But we couldn't. The local officials would not make that commitment. So there are a lot of pieces to what we're talking about today. I just wanted to interject that we're fully on board and want to be as helpful as we can be, and appreciate all the expertise that you bring to the table.
Congressman Mitchell recently, when the President put out his budget, proposed that cut his GLRI funding, the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. He wrote a letter to the President, got the delegation to sign off, and requested the President to cease and desist and keep that funding in place. And ultimately, the House of Representatives passed a budget that included full funding of that and sent it to the Senate where it now sits. So hopefully our senators can work with the rest of the team up there and get it passed. So we'll have the funding from the federal level to support the good programs that help restoration projects, help water quality, stream bank stabilization, wetlands restoration, all those things going towards positive. The Lake St. Clair Metro Beach project part of Another good example, Army Corps of Engineers several years ago funded $25 million. They are the ones tasked with developing the work program to help spend the $25 million the Great Lakes County should know to help get. So we're going to be a partner. We're going to be pitching too.
Mike, I think you're up.
Who's got skin in the game?
Thank you. I appreciate that, brother.
I want, just let me say thank you for everybody for being here. This is awesome. And I think we're all in agreement that we're trying to work for something for a betterment, for our future, right? When we first met, a couple guys in here, it was in 2011, like you said. I reached out at that point in time to everybody I could to say, hey, what is this and what's going on? And it was really my neighbors at the time that informed me and educated me. Every time after a sewage overflow, after it rains hard, we have sewage overflows that you can see our water. And I have video, I have pictures, I have evidence of it where you can see it was blue one day, brown the next. I reached out at that point in time and said, wait a second, why are we not fixing this? Why can we not stop this? Our beaches are closed, right? We met back in 2011. Continued on until 2012 when I finally was able to get State Rep Anthony Ferlini to do a test to verify what was in this muck, because I wanted to know. Because we were always being told that the beaches are being closed because of geese and because of the natural stuff that Kevin talked about. And I will not disagree that that is not happening. But what else is happening is we had a state test verify and confirm human DNA is in this, and it comes from human waste. That was in 2012. The muck has allowed to continue to sit along our shoreline and build upon itself upon magnitude degrees that I don't think you guys here understand. And I'll be happy to take you guys after this meeting to 3 places and show you. And it's not just one place here, one place there. If you Google Earth right now, or if you go with me after this meeting, I will take you to every site that I'm talking about. And where are these discharges of muck accumulating? South of any discharge site that we discharge into the lake. That's why I asked, what fuels this? I'm not disagreeing that that's not in there, but what's fueling this? What are we adding to this? On top of that, let me just ask this in a room. The DEQ, DNR, EPA. What do all those acronyms stand for? Department of Environmental Quality, Department of Natural Resources, Environmental Protection Agencies. It doesn't take a genius to understand we are literally dumping sewage overflows into the same water in which we all drink. Now I know there's only one person in this room who said he lives in Macomb, and you guys are all Oakland County. The water you're drinking in Oakland County, and this is what everybody has to understand. Where's that coming from? Detroit. And yes, they have a lead-in from Lake Huron, but why did they have to bring that lead-in from Lake Huron? Because they knew back in the day, they had to do something because the sewage overflows that happen, that's causing our contamination to it. We are also having an issue. What happened in 2014? We had a massive flood, right? You guys know how many gallons of sewage overflow was dumped in there in 2014? They state, on average, they estimated 10 billion gallons. They estimated 10 billion gallons of sewage overflow happened. Think about that. We, on average, Oakland County dumps in, on average, over 1 billion gallons of sewage overflow. Yes, it's treated. Well, how do you treat it? We treat it with chlorine. If it's treated and it's safe for human contact, which is what the standards are, then why are we taking that water and using it to fill up our pools with? Why are we taking that water to do other things with? Because we know that it's not right. It's just not normal logical thinking that we should be polluting sewage overflows into our own water in which we need to live on. The standards need to be raised. The permits that are in place right now, if we want to be honest with ourselves, yes, we work towards a better future and everything else, but the permits are a permit to pollute. Period. The permits are a permit to pollute. If we wanted to stop this, we can. If we can put a man on the moon, we can stop this. We need the resources to do it. Why doesn't Oakland County have their own wastewater treatment plant? If they need 5 wastewater treatment plants, put it in there. I will guarantee you this, if Macomb County dumped into Oakland County on the rate that they're dumping on us, They would not allow that. Period. Think about it. On average, 1 billion gallons of sewage overflow. Let me ask this question too. The permits, the standards, are they ever adjusted or need to be changed according to what's happening within the situation?
Permits are adjusted every 5 years.
Okay, no, but I'm saying during the screening process, the dilution rate, the chemicals you put in, do they change when we have a major overflow that is over an inch of rain or 2 inches of rain, that you either have to do something different or the basements are going to start flooding? Do you ever change the dilution rate on that and what has to happen, or the screens maybe changed from?
I apologize, I don't understand.
Okay, it's okay. We'll talk about
The
later.
rate would be adjusted based on the flow.
So the rate, so yeah, based on the flow, the grades are adjusted. We're not, my understanding, they go from a quarter-inch screen to even as large as a 1 inch or even a 2 inch grade.
You're kind of not messing.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Okay.
No, I want an answer on this now, and it's this. Wait just a minute.
Yeah, just trying to
If a
figure out.
grate's got only a quarter inch and flowage of water is backing up, do you open the grates larger so that the flow can go through without backing up basements in Warren?
So, we're talking about the GWK facility, right?
Sure.
Okay.
You can talk about maybe a Macomb or whatever.
Okay, in the GWK facility, yes, they have 5 screens that take 99% of the flow. During those extreme rain events, like the August of 2014 event, the sewer levels will back up, and there are emergency screens that they do flow through in those events. But
Which means that there's more contaminants left into the lake as a result.
So here,
this is extreme events.
I understand. You know what? You say extreme events. The reality is this. This is what we're left with as an option to open the grates larger to let's face it, what they used to flush back in the toilet with grandmas and grandpas, they're not flushing
So the
that
point is
same
that
thing.
it's not backing up in people's basements.
I get
It's a
it.
really
Wait a
different
minute.
health
I get
concern.
it. I get what you're saying.
Please,
Okay,
let me just finish my
go ahead,
statement, please, because I'm trying to get this out. I will be the first to state this on camera. If there's only 2 options, people's basements flood up, or you put in a lake, you put in a lake. But why has there never been an option 3, option 4, option 5 ever in place? Why have we not worked towards having our own system in place that could stop this? If we disconnect sewage from storm, that would stop this. Retention basins, in my opinion, are a Band-Aid fix for everything. They're an expensive fix. And I'm going to bring this up here because we're at this meeting right here. It's the only chance I have to talk with you about this. City of Warren just approved $53 million to spend on a retention basin that's going to hold 13 million gallons.
we can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to spend $53 million on a retention basin that's going to go hold 13 million gallons. So far this year, City of Warren has dumped in 57 million gallons, 52 million gallons, 62 million gallons, and 67 million gallons of sewage overflow. So we're going to spend $53 million to put in a retention basin that's going to put in a stoppage of 10 million gallons of that, 12 million gallons?
I just want to point out one thing with the City of Warren. The City of Warren is a separated sewer system, so there's different requirements on a separated sewer system. So their retention basin isn't the same as a basin as from a combined sewer basin.
Okay.
So Warren's basin is not, at least their initial design, is not even going to have an outlet to surface water. It's basically a big storage basin that they have to certify their system can handle the 25-year, 24-hour event. So what that is basically a 3.9-inch rain event. And that's our standard for all separated sewer systems.
Again, you're talking.
So it's different.
You're talking to standards. What I'm trying to say is our standards need to be raised to prevent this. Why do we not, even in Detroit, Oakland County, Macomb County, we should all have, every county should have their own wastewater treatment plant. And if we need 5 of them, then put 5 in. We have to prevent sewage overflows from entering our lake. I'm going to do this here because, you know, we're all here at this table. I will guarantee you this, when we talk sewage overflow, what does everybody think of right now? If you want to be honest, you probably think of poop. Right? That's what we're thinking when we're going to say sewage overflow, think of poop. That is probably the safest thing in a sewage overflow. There is blood, viruses, toxins, chemicals, anything that goes on a drain. Even worse yet now, if we're going to be honest in the room here, let's do show of hands. In let's just say 15 years ago, how many were on some kind of prescription drug or pharmaceutical drug or narcotic drug? Fast forward now to this year, How many people in an age society are on some kind of pharmaceutical drug, or even worse yet, narcotic drugs? Or we're in a system in an age society where everybody's taking drugs and pharmaceuticals. As we take these as human beings, we take this into our bodies ingest it and absorb it, and how do we eliminate that from our body? The pharmaceuticalness, the chemicalness of it does not leave, doesn't get absorbed in our body. We urinate that out through our pee. So when we have these overflows of, and even worse yet, let me talk about this, cancer treatments. My father died of cancer nearly 6 years ago. He was going through chemoradiation at a rate that was so high, the doctors told our family to do not let anybody else use the bathroom in which he just got done using. Because they were afraid that their young children could get radiation from after him going to the bathroom. Again, I'm just trying to talk. We have now zoom out on how many people are in Macomb County and Oakland County on cancer. They're having these chemoradiations. And when we eliminate that out, that all goes into our fresh water. We have to understand in the sewage overflow what is really going into it, and why are we not preventing this from happening? To me, again, this is what I like about this room. We need to do better. We have to do better. Things have happened. We know that it's happened. And, you know, a man by the name of Doug Marks gave his life to this and has brought more awareness of this. Save Lake St. Clair is not something I woke up one day and said, I can't wait to start. It's not like I said, I'm so excited to do this. I'll be honest with you, this causes more problems for me than anything. This isn't something I wanted to do and I'm excited to do. But I'm doing it because I look at my children, I look at my family, and I understand what's going on in the lake and what's happening. And I hope you guys, by the end of this meeting, take into what I've just said, take into what's happened, and just work towards better. Forget, you know, oh, we can do it. To me, the answer is separation of sewage from storm. The answer is, why doesn't every county have their own wastewater treatment plant? Why can't we handle it? And why Detroit needs to have a bigger wastewater treatment plant to handle this? Then build a bigger wastewater treatment plant.
So right
I
now,
mean, we can prevent this. That's the best thing. This whole thing is preventable.
we're turning it now because of the fact that we've got time limitations. Is there any other discussion? Thanks, Mike. Is there any other discussion? I know this has been a long, is there any other discussions that you want to bring up? Because what I'm hoping happens in conclusion is that we do get back something that's from the legislators. We get together with you as partners, as this governor has indicated, and at the final conclusion, we have an action plan that we visit throughout the summer. That's going to be my hope, that I can work with you during the summer when we're off and just doing our district work, that we will get together to have some legislation to put in as soon as we're done with this plan.
Can I just bounce on that? So we're talking about the legislation possibly being put in place. The state of Michigan's own website states, this is right on the state of Michigan's website, so you guys all work somehow for the state of some sort, right? State of Michigan states that the state is responsible for maintaining a safe and navigable waterway. We have muck mats being built up along our shoreline that is growing an experimental year after year, leaving them there. It's just making it, it's choking out our shoreline. It's reducing the oxygen in the area. It's not good quality of life. Why are we letting this accumulate up and choke our shoreline? We need to have legislation put into place or something to start removing this stuff. If we don't start removing this, you're not going to have any kind of a shoreline at all. It will just continue to grow and grow and grow. The state of Michigan requires it. And let me remind you, the state of Michigan has confirmed human DNA in this waste. I have videos that show sewage overflows as they happen, and we have tampons in there. We have toilet paper in there. Screen it, treat it, do whatever you want to do, but that still happens.
Is there a problem at this point with my recommendation? I've talked to my colleagues in the House, the Senate, and they've agreed that whatever we can do over the summer is our time to get this done. Is there a timeline that?
I understand, I mean, that's a timeline for you. It's also our busiest season, to be honest. This is when we are in the field doing our work every day, so.
But I'm asking for an action plan that you already know that we need. I'm asking for a funding plan that you believe is the number that you believe will help conclude this thing. And I'm looking at from 1997, when the first Blue Water, I want to make sure I got it right, Blue Water Commission report was prepared. You've been in office a longer time than I have. I only got so much time. These representatives that are here today only got so much time. These senators, representatives that are here today only got so much time. So what would you recommend me doing if I'm telling you, look, I got my hand out, I brought you into the community, I'm offering the lake tea today, and I'm asking you, I can work with you all summer. I'll come up at your disposal. I'll make my day available to you because I'm making this my mission before I leave the legislature to finish the job. Tell me what you want from me. You're all here now.
I don't want to speak because I'm not the DEQ's liaison, but I know my counterpart. I mean, yeah, we can get you as members of appropriations committees. I mean, you're obviously the third. Like,
No, I'm not, I'm policy, but I got appropriation here.
Yeah, Representative
Steve,
Marino.
yeah, Representative Marino, Representative Yarrick,
Yeah.
okay? But
So
Representative Churkin and Representative Hertel and Representative Hornberger, those are all policy people. But we're here because I'm gonna get a plan from you. You're the experts that are taking taxpayers' dollars, which is your salary like mine, to figure this out. I'm not going back without something in my hand.
So this isn't, I just, I mean,
Well, how about
I don't
this?
even know how to quite answer it.
There's one more thing, there's one more partner that's not here, and those are the local partners.
Exactly.
Well, you,
Well, here's.
oh, my
But I don't know who else
locals,
is
my
here. That's the
locals, my
problem.
boards that I report to, my boards in Shelby, Washington, Romeo, and Bruce want to hear from the state what they believe will figure it out because you're charged with the water quality in this state. The Attorney General's office, as you didn't want to speak for,
I can't speak for them.
also has a Consumer Protection Department, which also takes care of the water. And if our state police didn't do what they needed to do, when we look at that report from Canada from last year.
So I'm gonna go back, this is what I can promise you right now. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna have a conversation with my deputy and the director over what we can do. Because I don't have the magic bullet for you. We don't know what happens in each of the individual communities. I don't know which sections have sump pumps still connected to sewers that shouldn't be. I mean, we have a general idea based on flows, but you're talking a long-term plan, a long-term, essentially, analysis of, I don't know, all of Southeast Michigan?
No, that's not what we're asking. No, let me be very specific. Are we recording this? Be specific, and that's what I'm doing. Representative Hertel, as well as all the other representatives that are here today, will let you know how much of each community, if you need that information, in Macomb County specifically.
Okay.
We want to know from you, though, and don't piecemeal it, what Oakland needs to do, because we have representatives that are saying to us, show us what they need at the DEQ to help you down in Macomb.
Right.
But these representatives are genuine. When I went to those representatives,
I'm gonna go back and talk. I really cannot promise you anything right now, because this is.
well, I will promise you this, that we will continue these discussions and that you'll give us a plan, because that's what the governor wants, is a plan when he made his own statement when he took office. I want to have a plan to do what's needed to have done and then carry out that plan.
It is, and that's where this is
Just
getting.
a minute.
This is not something, so much of these pieces come from the local level.
So
And
let's
it's
pick a
driven
good
by
place
the
to
local
start.
level.
If we were to put together, if it's folks at this table or people from the local level, a work group that would look at making recommendations and putting a report together, and we have, from your point of view, what that would look like, who should be on it, so we can get the correct information. Because I think at the beginning of this, if we can get all the information, all the right people in the room, then we can figure out the cost, and then we can go on from there.
I think that's
So would you be
Representative,
willing?
study groups I've heard about for the last 3 years in Lansing. I'm not asking for a study group on this one. You are the experts, you are the ones that are the experts in this department. Wait a minute, you are charged with water quality in the state.
Right.
I think what
Am I missing something? Are you not charged with water quality in the state?
Sure we are.
Then therefore, give us what you need to make our quality of water different.
You're making it seem very simplistic. And this isn't a simple problem. If it was, it'd be fixed, right? So this isn't that simple. The local units of government have a role and responsibility that we only have certain legal authority over. And we have to stay within our framework, which has been set. You're asking us to put together a project or a product that we don't even necessarily have the expertise, as you keep saying, to do. Because it takes a lot of pull from a lot of different places to put that together. To pull this off in the time frame in which you want, which is actually the worst possible season for us as an agency, because this is when we're out doing our work, our real field work. I can't do some of this work in the wintertime. I know, I understand what you need. Give me an opportunity to go back. We'll tell you, we'll come back and we'll meet again. You and I will meet. We'll get the directors in. We'll figure out what we, and I can only speak for DEQ, what we can do.
And if we need bigger space because you're bringing more people to help, because we're willing to help.
We've got a big office in Ward. We're thrilled to have you there.
Great. It'll be the next meeting place about 3 months from now after we get a recommendation.
And if we can know who else would be involved and maybe more, we weren't
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
aware.
whoa. I'm asking you because all of a sudden I've got
On your
notes.
side as well, though. And
Well, wait a minute. If you need my locals there, you need to tell me why, because what they're saying to me is, if they're telling us it's X amount of dollars from Shelby, Washington, Romeo Bruce, from the areas that Representative Marino here represents, or Hertel, or Yarrick, or Turkin, or whoever else is in this place. We're only there for 6 years, guys. You know this.
I know.
And you know what? I can't have you tell me 20 years from now we're still working on it.
My name's William Bardell. I just want to go over a couple of things real quick. I've been a skilled tradesman for 37 years. I've done jobs over at Detroit Wastewater Treatment Plant, and I invite everybody should go and tour the plant. When I drive, I live on 37865 Point Rosa, and I know a lot of you guys are going to be, and I live in Harrison Township. I've been a resident there for 20 years. I know a lot of you are going to be going out to your cabins. I'm going to be in my backyard fishing under the umbrella, and hopefully it doesn't rain. But I will tell you this. When I drive my bike on that south side around the horn, please nobody, please leave while let me finish up. I'll be very fast, please. Half the people already left, and that's what I didn't want. When I drive my bike on south of the horn, I know the difference between rotting human waste, because I know what it smells like. Being a plumber for 37 years, I know all about poop, the characteristics, what it does. I know what rotting material smells like, plant vegetation. I know all about that. But I can tell you this, what you can do now, what do we want that's doable right now? Right now, we need wastewater treatment at all retention basins. Retention basins only treat part of it. And when you say that it settles, that's laughable. If you strained it, okay, and then shot it with some bleach, and maybe pressed it through a filter, reverse osmosis. Do we know what that is? Reverse osmosis? I built reverse osmosis filters over at the, if you want to check a reverse osmosis system, over at the River Rouge Powerhouse. They use that water for their boilers. They press it through, they bring in crates of filters, they pull them out, they replace them, you press it through. It's good enough for the boilers. So what you need is each retention basin needs to be a wastewater treatment plant. It could be a mini wastewater treatment plant. That's doable now. Ask for the funding. You need the funding, ask your representative. Each retention basin needs to be a mini wastewater treatment plant. And that's why I invite you all to go see what they do at Detroit Wastewater Treatment Plant. The second thing is, that's doable now. You need the money. Each retention basin is a wastewater treatment plant. Number two, with everybody moving in, developers moving in, they did not make the developers have a evaporation pond next to their brand new McMansions. So it flows in, flows out to the lake. And also, when people get their sump pumps clogged up every 3 years, instead of snaking it out, some hot dog pumps it into the sanitary sewer. Sanitary and stormwater are two different items. So you got to check that. You'll say, well, Big Brother going to everybody's house. You got to, just like the meters, you got to go in every house. That sump pump cannot be piped into the sanitary sewer. So those are two doable things right now. Number 3, doable right now. I don't see you writing anything down. There's no validation that this water is getting treated at these retention basins, other than we'll get in trouble. You write it down. There's no validation. There's no validation strip, a camera, a digital readout. It goes in, it comes out. There's your there's your parts per billion. There's your parts per million. That's within the federal guidelines. We don't even know if the federal guidelines are too high or too low because you can't validate what they did, other than we'll get in trouble. Okay? This thing where it's gonna, the poop is gonna drop to the bottom is laughable. That is ridiculous. It should be pushed through screens. It should be pushed through reverse osmosis. And this thing where I'm not an engineer, well, what are you doing with your time? You should be going to engineering school. There's 24 hours in a day. You're not an engineer? I don't want to ever hear that again from anyone. If you're in a big high office and you make this big money, you better be an engineer. Okay? I'm a skilled tradesman. I know about this stuff. There's no validation that these parts per million are being validated, other than they write it down. They don't get the right number, they check it here, they check it there. It's not on camera, there's no validation. Each retention basin needs to be a mini wastewater treatment plant. Okay? Each retention basin can also get pushed through filters or reverse osmosis. This is doable now. Now, that's what you ask your people in Congress. Mini wastewater treatment plant. It's not working out. I know what poop smells like. I know the care. I've been a tradesman for 30 years. I know all about it. I know all about pipes, sewers. I know all about that stuff. It's not working what you got right now. It's not working. I know what poop is. I know what rotting vegetation is. We've got each retention basin must be a mini wastewater treatment plant, and it is doable.
Okay.
2017, thank you.
Guys, it's noon now. I want to thank you for the time that you spent. Unless there's other items, I know Kevin wants to conclude it with one thing. Representative Hertel.
So I know in our discussion, you're going to let us know the information that you may need from locals so I understand your workload, you're getting into a busy season.
Well, it's not even that. It's somewhat outside of what we do, and so it's a very strange request. We're gonna go back from DEQ. We're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna get back.
What would you suggest the best way if we wanted to put together a comprehensive action plan to move forward on some of these issues? Is it the people at this table who would? Because the other way we could go about this is we could try to pass legislation that would require departments to put together this action plan. I'd rather stay away from that and go about doing it.
We don't have the time, Representative.
Exactly.
We don't have the time.
Well, so I think what's missing, and I think Anna did a nice job of it, is like the locals aren't even here. And so
I need a list.
the largest portion of this action plan comes from the
So
locals.
if you were to look, you told me you could tell me the data based on flow and overflows and those type of things. So we can look and see where that information is, and you could tell me the information that you may need from locals, and then we can bring the right people, or at least get the information and bring it to you.
Yes, I think.
So for the next meeting that we have, we'll have a list of what you need. We can bring that.
Give me 2 weeks. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely.
To go back and chat. I mean, next week is completely shot for 4,000 other reasons. But let me go back and chat, get my directors so they know what's being asked of us, because they're going to go, what just happened? And get them informed on what the request is. We'll talk about what we can bring to the table right now, and then what we think you would need in order to finish that puzzle out. Some of those finish the puzzle out pieces are going to be way outside of what our legal authority is. And it's going to be back to the local unit governments. I mean, a statewide septic code, we're still begging for a statewide septic code. I mean, if you wanted to do something really successful as a legislature right now, you'd pass a statewide septic code. That is a huge, huge issue that's not getting any play and no legs, and it affects the entire quality of life. It protects the local units of government. It protects your citizens. It's a huge piece. If you want to do something really proactive, go do that. We'll go back and we'll work on this.
But my
Give me a couple
citizens, as well as theirs, want to know why the beaches are closed. Listen to what I'm saying. When they have a level, and that might be a legislative thing, that we go ahead and make the level so low now that we'll never have people that are putting dumpage into the lake here, that we will go ahead now and not be able to close the beaches because they won't be able to pollute like they're doing. And what I'm asking you is, If the levels are unacceptable to you, tell me what levels make sense and we'll legislate that portion.
So I understand that thought. Okay, the other piece of that is you may never reach that number because of some of the other things, you know, and Shannon's talked about what happens on those beaches. It isn't just human sewage, which nobody in this room is going to disagree that we need to get full control of that. That takes, and that's what we can talk about. We can talk about what would we need to do in order to eliminate or get down to minimize, and that's what the federal standards say. They often say minimize, they often say eliminate. It gives you options. So we can talk about that component of it. Moving the number down, sometimes legislates you right out of compliance. And so no matter what you got, you could lower the number down to 0, and what's going to happen is the beaches are always going to be closed. You don't want that either. You want it to be safe. You want it to be protective. So we need to find, we have a protective number. We want to stay at the protective number and get the sources of pollution down. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So that's what we try to do every single day. If you can come forward and provide some assistance, whether it's working with the local units governments, coming up with funding, increased infrastructure,
All those things that you need as tools, we'll help you get those tools.
All right, I'm holding you to
Hold me to it, because you know what?
You know what I'm gonna ask
I've got an executive here in Macomb County that talks about a blue water economy. I don't want the blue water economy to float away because the beaches are closed, because you can't put a boat on the water.
Absolutely, we're 100% with you. I mean, I don't want anybody walking into this room thinking we don't agree with you on these issues. We do. This is what we've dedicated our work to.
Have you ever got together in the entire 20 years since we had Doug Martz go ahead and come up with the Blue Water Commission report? Have you been together, and I know you haven't been there maybe 20 years. Phil, you have, haven't you?
30 years.
Over here, from the fishing industry, you have, right? You guys from over here, the Corps, been there 30 years? Here's the reality, guys. A report came out 20 years ago. Guess what? We're still talking about the same thing.
Actually, a lot of improvements have been made, and that's true. A lot of improvements have been made.
Can I say this, only because we have everybody in the room here, and you said it, you said it best. We're going to work towards helping make it safe. Since we have people in the room, at the end of this meeting, we have an initiative here called Stand Behind the Sign. If you mean it, stand behind the sign with us, take a picture of it, so we can post it and show that you guys are willing to work behind it. It's not even saying if you don't. I get it, I totally do.
Do a letter.
But I would like the people in this room who are stating what they want to say, if they want to stand behind the sign, state representatives, whoever is maybe in this room, I would love to have you do it.
May I just throw something out here? This is what I call a mastermind meeting. I'll bet you, as soon as we leave here, every one of you as individuals, your mind's going to start clicking. I know what's going to happen. Over and go, hey, this is a great idea. You're going to carry a sheet of paper around with you, and I'll bet you every one of you, if you were God, what you would do. That's a great idea. Then you start talking about it.
We have them all the time.
Fantastic. Let's hear them.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. There's a restaurant here if you want to eat, and if you don't, if you want to go to the lake, I know, Mike, you've offered.
Yeah, if anybody wants, if you guys want, I'll take you to these spots and show you where I'm talking about.
I launched my personal boat at Jefferson Beach Marina yesterday. Oh, and one more thing. Let's go. Did everybody give a card because we want to notify you about anything that happened here today? Did everybody give a card?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody want to stand behind the sign? Now's a good time.
Next to Pete. I'm coming, Larry. Put your money where your mouth is, people.
Everybody in.
Hold on,
Dominic, just keep it. Dominic.
Here we go. All right, so
On the count of 3, guys.
Appreciate
Here,
it.
grab the sign. Here, stretch your sign. Stretch it.
Yeah, this is great.
Watch for the
Got it.
camera to look at.
We're good.
Yeah. Got it?
Just look this way. We got it. Hey, we got it.
Okay.
Very good.
I hope there's something, I hope Nick, when you go out and look at the water, where's Nick? He's gone. When Nick goes out and looks at the water, you may see something different.
Did you get those photos you're saying of the one from the winter?
Nick, Nick, you're going to the lake, right? Okay.
Where you guys going?
Hi, how are you?
Vegetation was
So
above the lake.
I was trying to, otherwise,